Hello again and welcome to Ask the Candidate. I'm Steve Kime with the City of Enid, and thank you for joining me today. The Enid Television Network is certainly pleased to be offering this program to you as a public service. I have 8 questions that I'll be asking the mayoral candidates, and with me now is a candidate for Enid Mayor, Milton Mitchell. Milton, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Here we go.
All right.
Right off the bat, Milton, why do you want to serve as mayor of Enid?
Because I had a conversation with Tom, my next door neighbor, who's 82 years old. I had a conversation with Brent, my neighbor across the street, who is one of our local police officers. I had a conversation with Renee, an employee out at Walmart. I talked to Gladys, who works at one of the local nursing homes, and many people in our local congregation at our church, and Roy, who is, I believe he works as an emergency medical technician. And after speaking with these people, I realized that there was a need. And they were voicing their opinions to me of what they would like to see as far as the city of Enid, the progress that they would like to see it make, the things that they felt had not been addressed, and just typical conversation that you would have with individuals. And a thought always came to my mind. Rather than complaining about something, I thought I'd do what my mother said. Rather than doing something like that, get involved. Things won't change unless you get involved. And so after discussing those topics or certain topics with them about what they would like to see as far as Enid, and they said, well, you ought to run. And I said, not me, And they said, yeah, you really should. And so here I am.
Would you describe your academic and or professional credentials that prepares you to lead Enid as mayor?
Well, I'm going to start out by saying, making this statement. I am a Enid High School dropout. And I went into the United States Army my senior year in high school in 1969. And I completed my high school education by getting a GED while I was in the Army. Once I was out of the Army, I attended Wichita State University for 1 year. And due to the lack of economic means, I left school and I never went back. But I have worked in my life and I had my own business. I started out, I was born and raised right here in Enid. I used to have a remodeling and construction business. And from there, I went into nursing, and I went to nursing school out here at Autry, Votech, and which when I graduated from that particular program was a 3.98, so I felt like my brain was still working. And I went into the nursing profession. From there, I moved to Katy, Texas, a little more than 20 years ago. And I started a business called Unique Services TB. That particular business, we did health and safety training. We did tuberculosis testing. We did continued education programs, which, by the way, my wife and I authored, and they're still using that for nurses and daycares and like that in Texas as part of their continued education curriculum. We did health and wellness checks for staff. We service companies like the Clorox Corporation, the local police department, daycares, churches and things of that nature. Pretty successful business, which we started that business with in 1998 with $500. We started the business. And from November of 1998 to December of 1998, we made a grand total of $2,500. That very next year, in 1999, we progressed and brought in $60,000. The third year that we were in business, we went to $120,000. The fourth year, we went to 180. The fifth year, we were 200,000 or better. So that's what I bring to the table as far as credentials to run for mayor, because you have to be able to look at what will benefit. And when you're talking about finances, which is what it takes, then you want someone who's familiar with it.
Milton, this is an open-ended question. Feel free to go with your answer wherever, but it just simply is, what is your vision for Enid?
It's almost like the points that I have. Better roads. We need better roads. We need to, that part of the infrastructure seems to, has not been addressed, I think, adequately. And so we need better roads. We need, I would like to see us have a better water resource. I mean, we do have water, we do have wells, but I'd like to see us have a little more of a resource. Like, I'm just surprised and shocked after all these years that Enid doesn't have a real bona fide lake and recreational area, and which would also help with our water resource as far as having that available to us and to supply water not only here in Enid but in the surrounding area. Of course, I like to see industrial complexes come here. I like to see manufacturing come into Enid. Like we have windmills that are going up all over the state, from Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Colorado, Texas, Louisiana. And I would like to see us to court and bring in a manufacturing for parts and supplies, because they're going to have to be repaired and maintained. And I'd like to see a facility such as that happen right here in Enid, so that we create jobs, bring in a steady stream of revenue, the same as a lake would create jobs and bring in a steady stream of revenue. And I'd like to see those streams of revenue be particularly and specifically, or probably predominantly, earmarked for infrastructure. And of course, I'd like to have transparency as far as the local government itself is concerned. People have spoken to me and say they don't know anything until it's happening. Well, I'd like to probably go back to our roots and start having forums and open forums where we can actually sit down with town halls and discuss with the people of Enid what it is that we'd like to do, the direction that we'd like to go in. And you know, there's not enough thought given to it, because I'm kind of like Eleanor Roosevelt. And she said, small minds, I think they talk about people. Average minds, they typically discuss events. And great minds, they discuss ideas. And I think we have a lot of great minds in Enid that we need to tap into and utilize what they have to offer to us in the form of ideas that would help us to go progressively forward.
Milton, you've already shared with us your background, your experiences and credentials, and in regard to leadership. The question is, if you could identify one leadership skill, what would it be that you have that would promote and lead the City Council to work together?
It's a great question, and I did think about that one. I pastored for about 35 years, and the young man that is now the pastor of our church up here at First Missionary Baptist Church, who is Wilbur Flynn. He's quite a bit younger than I am. When he was nominated as pastor, and he came to me and asked me would I come and be an associate pastor there and work with him. And he asked me to think about it and to get back with him. I did that. And when I came on board there were many other ministers that were there. And I made this statement to them. I may be older. Being wiser is suspect, but I thought maybe I might have been. I certainly had more experience. But I thought it was very important for me to say this to all those ministers. It's important for us to respect this office of the pastor. And I want to be the first one to say that I am completely on board and I am completely supportive of our pastor. And I want him to know, and I wanted them to know, that I had no problem submitting myself to this younger man who I hoped had a great vision for the ministry. And I thought that it was important for all of us to be on board like that. To me, that's what leadership is. It's not just stepping out and being in the front, but it's also being able to follow. It's being able to listen, it's being able to hear. And I think that is what I'll bring to the board, that if you have an ego, check it out the door and let us sit here together and work together and listen to our constituency and help our city to move forward and be viable and successful.
Milton, the next question is just simply established, just to learn a little bit more about you. You've already established the fact of financially how your business grew, and by 5 years it had grown 5 times. I mean, it was just significant. So the question is, what item or event would you consider, outside of that, say one of your most significant achievements? And you can take it the last year, last few years, but
probably one of the most significant achievements that I'm very proud of is when the American Red Cross recognized our company for 3 years in a row as being the most influential in emergency service to the city of Houston. We had trained more people to perform CPR and first aid and addressing emergency situations than any other company in Houston. And in all those years that we had that business, that was the most endearing and significant accomplishment to me, because I never realized we were training that many people. And our goal was to always let people know it's the important thing is that you always do something. Don't ever get so caught up in what you have to do that you cannot perform, you can't function, because anything you do is better than nothing. And that statement by itself was enabled us to cause people to relax and to be able to be trained for emergency situations. And we would train over 10,000 people a year for CPR and first aid and emergency training.
Milton, this next question is more of a city government question. What major issue, based on what you know about the Enid community and what you know about Enid city government, what issue do you see would be in the forefront that the commission will face in 2019? And under your leadership skills as the mayor, how would you address that issue? So that's kind of a two-part question. What is that issue that you see the council will face in 2019, and how would you lead? Excuse me.
Well, what I am seeing and what I believe is probably the number one issue from most of the people that I've talked to is roads. I mean, if there's anything that you're asked that statements are made about more than anything is when are we going to fix the roads? What are we going to do about it? And I think it's a major issue, and probably a part of the issue is a lack of revenue. Right now in the state of Oklahoma, 42%, I think about 42% of all bridges and roads and infrastructure is located in small towns and municipalities. But the state only sends about 3.1% of revenue to the small towns to address the roads and bridges. I mean, pretty despairing, I would think, but good luck with getting the Oklahoma legislature to send more money to our little municipalities and to change legislation to address that situation. So I think that it becomes imperative for us as a municipality to take responsibility for developing revenue streams for the city of Enid. And by doing that, we can specifically use the funds or the finances that we would garner from that to address our failing road structures, our failing roads. I mean, they're terrible. And that's, I think, is probably the number one issue that's going to confront the city council. And I think that's the number one issue that the citizens of Enid are concerned about right now.
Well, it is a big concern because this leads into my next question, because the question is, city staff receives a variety of comments and suggestions and complaints, and potholes is number one. And so it was going to lead in, and you can add to your additional statement. It sounds like you've already addressed it, but what role do you see as mayor playing in the improvement of pavements and street program?
Okay, I'm going to share a very personal story of something that just occurred. Just last Friday, my wife was doing her morning walk. Normally we go and we walk together, but she was alone last Friday out at the mall, and she fell. Her shoelaces got caught in shoes. She fell, broke her arm in two places just below the shoulder. She called, or at least one of the individuals that was out there that was helping her called me and said, your wife fell, could you come and see about it? I said, I'm dropping everything and I'm headed there right away. And after putting her in a wheelchair, getting her into the car, and heading to the emergency room from the mall, I hit bump after bump after bump after bump. And I had to do that and listen to my wife moan and groan and cry all the way. All the way. I couldn't go slow enough to ease her pain. I couldn't go fast enough to ease her pain, because no matter what I did, she felt those bumps, every move. Then, when I got close to the hospital and I turned north on 4th Street, it was like going through a minefield, because we were headed to St. Mary's. So it was like going through a minefield. And then we came to, I believe it was Oklahoma Street, and we made a right to go east towards St. Mary's, and it was another minefield. And we finally came down, I guess that must have been 5th Street, and it was a little smooth, but right across that street, we were just outside of ER at St. Mary's, and it was the worst part of the road again. We have to do something to address this part of our infrastructure. I think one of the things that Enid probably did, because as a child living here in Enid, I could swear that I saw road crews, that Enid had its own road crews, people that specifically addressed those needs, making sure that the roads were properly maintained, that new roads were put in place properly. And then I come home and find that we have no such department any longer in the city of Enid. I think it's asinine to think that you can maintain the roads and maintain your infrastructure without having people in place, specifically there in place, to address that type of a need. So I would like to see us, instead of sourcing out revenues to other companies that more than likely have not even been local, that we would recreate that part of staff for the city of Enid to specifically address not just in the present, but for the future, because it's something that will have to be addressed not just now, but also in the future.
We need to shift our focus on topics here, Milton, for just a moment, get away from infrastructure for just a second. And the question has to deal with technology. What will be the role of social media during your tenure as mayor of Enid?
Enid needs to take advantage of social media, from everything from Facebook to Twitter. We need to hashtag, we have two very wonderful institutions here in Enid that are not very well known, not very well advertised. Northern Oklahoma College and Oteyatri Vocational School. We need to begin to have media blitzes that's out there, much like Oklahoma State University. Man, you hear some great national and statewide broadcasts talking about how great the school is, how great the community is, and we need to take advantage of all the social media that's available to us to do the same thing for these type of institutions, which, of course, the more students that we have, and that also creates revenue that will stay here in Enid, just because since we're mentioning this. But education is a great step to success, even though, like for me, and I realized many a time that had I taken more advantage of education, I don't know where I might have been the first black president. I don't know. But I'm just saying it is the first step to success. And we have some great institutions here, and we need to take advantage of it. We have one of the great museums, that's not much known about it, but down at Simpson's Mercantile. Man, that's a treasure of cultural identity for Enid and Northwest Oklahoma. It's just there, and it's not being utilized and taken advantage of like it should, because we should have people coming from all over the country to come there and to participate in that particular genre. And we have other of course, we do have other good museums that are here, but culturally, we need to broaden ourselves and broaden our perspectives and take advantage of the media and make people a lot more aware of this jewel that we have here that we call home, Enid, Oklahoma.
Well, Milton, this concludes the Q&A portion of our visit, if you will. And I want to provide you the opportunity, as I provided the other candidates, for you to speak to the folks, to the citizens of Enid. And again, this is open-ended, so this is your opportunity. You look to the camera there on the right and just speak to the citizens, please.
Well, I want to address this to Carl, to Hey Matten, my little neighbor across the street. That's my buddy. He's my little friend. I want to talk to all of the people from the hospitals to the police to the fire to the worker at the cafe, to all the people, I want you to know that we're the same. I'm you and you're me. It's time for us to stand up and take control and begin to take the kind of responsibility that's necessary for Enid to grow and to prosper. We have an opportunity to do something that has never been done. We have an opportunity to change the dynamic of our city. Together, we can do that. I think that it's time for us to have open forums, open discussions about the direction that we want our city to go in, and I think that it's time for your representatives to do just that. Represent you, represent what's in your best interest. I'm your man for that. I'm willing and I'm ready, not because it's a paid position, but because, like you, I have children, I have grandchildren. I care about this community, and I want to see us do the things that are necessary for our children and our grandchildren to have what we had as children. Good recreation. I want us to have good entertainment. I want us to become culturally more aware. I want us to be more progressive in how we address our needs and not be afraid to explore technology or manufacturing. It's been said to me that a few control the city. I don't believe that. I believe that we are more than the few, and together we can do what has never been done. We can move the city forward. We can help it progress in the way that it should. We can address our infrastructure needs in the present, and we can look forward into the future to have a steady stream of revenue to be able to do just that. We can create the kind of recreation and recreational activities that would be good for our city. I know we need a new movie theater. What we really need is an entire entertainment district. We need to rethink how we think about things and create an entertainment district off of our downtown and make it new and inviting for our young people, for our middle-aged people, for our elderly, that's family-friendly, and that will generate tourism and traffic towards our downtown because we have a rich heritage that exists right downtown. But unless we begin to think progressive, unless we begin to be more inclusive, those kinds of things don't happen. So who must it include? It must include you, and it must include me. So Roy, Don, Lisa over at the school, for you, Rose out at the hospital, for all of you, Renee out at Walmart, for the individuals that are in all of these jobs and capacities all over Enid. Vote for yourself. A vote for me is a vote for you. I look forward to serving the city of Enid as mayor. I'm not going to get paid for this, folks, but I realize the work that's set before us is not going to be easy. There are going to be obstacles that are there. There's going to be people that are not going to want to let go and let us do what we know is right. We need good common sense government. We need good common sense direction in order to change what has not happened in Enid, Oklahoma. It's ridiculous. It's so sad that my wife suffered all the way from that mall to St. Mary's because our infrastructure, our road systems have not been addressed. Not 1 year have they been addressed in 50 years. So it's time for us to take control of local government and do what needs to be done so that our city is more beautiful, more attractive, not just for us, not just for our children, but for all of those in the state of Oklahoma and hopefully from across this nation, they'll say, Enid is on the move. Thank you.
Milton, thank you for your time. Thank you for your responses. Appreciate it very much. Milton Mitchell, candidate for Enid Mayor. So thank you for joining us on Ask the Candidate. I'm Steve Kime with the City of Enid, and we appreciate you taking time today to watch our program. And don't forget, it's important that you get out and vote. So again, thank you for joining us for Ask the Candidate. Until next time, make it a great day. Thank you.